Hello, Squirrel Tribe. So today is an interesting day. So I have my notes here. I wrote a whole thing that I wanted to share with you guys about what is going on in New York City, NYC, with the police department and everything else. And the irony of it is, I'm about to go read this to you guys, and I decided to just check and see exactly what's going on everywhere. And I see that there was a shooting in the subway system of New York City. And like, what are the odds that it's New York related, right? Everything seems to be happening in New York right now. We had the Truckers for Trump going through New York. We have the illegal immigrants that are beating up the police officers in New York. You have New York and what they've done to Donald Trump. You have, what's her name, Letitia James, and just all kinds of stuff seems to be happening in New York. New York stays in the headlines, New York City specifically, not the state, but the city specifically. And it's like, when I was younger, I loved New York. I thought New York was a place to be. I'm going to blame it on Annie, one of my favorite movies growing up. And I wanted to be in New York. I wanted to move to New York. My goal as a child was to graduate high school and move to New York and work on a newspaper or a magazine publication in New York or whatever else. That didn't happen, obviously, but that was what I always wanted to do. Now, I am so incredibly glad that is not what happened, that New York was not in my future, my long-term goals or anything else, because it has turned into this weird shithole that, and a lot of people will blame it on the fact that it's a Democratic city, Democratic state, and maybe that's it, but I feel like there's a lot of people there that have just lost their ever-loving minds. So yesterday there was a shooting in the subway, and the first headlines I saw were, "Man gets shot with his own gun," and I'm like, well, that sounds really stupid, right? So ABC News, this just came out about an hour ago, and it says here that New York City man will not face charges for self-defense shooting on a Brooklyn subway. There's a 36-year-old man who was critically injured in Thursday's incident. No charges are being filed against the 32-year-old man who fired a gun on a New York City subway, critically injuring one person, prosecutors said, citing self-defense. Yesterday's shooting inside a crowded subway car was shocking and deeply upsetting. This is according to Oren Yaniv, who is a spokesperson for the Brooklyn District Attorney's Office. The investigation into this tragic incident is ongoing, but at this stage, evidence of self-defense precludes us from filing any criminal charges against the shooter. The 36-year-old shooting victim was armed with a knife and gun and acting as the aggressor when he entered the northbound A train in Brooklyn around 4:45 p.m. The 36-year-old later got into a dispute with a 32-year-old subway rider and pulled a gun out. He was disarmed by the 32-year-old and shot with his own gun. Now, the incident began when the 32-year-old got into a verbal and then physical dispute with the shooting victim, possibly over a subway seat. This is according to the police. A woman who was with the 32-year-old stabbed the 36-year-old in the back. Cell phone video from a fellow rider revealed. After he was stabbed, the 36-year-old man asked, "Did you stab me?" before pulling a gun from his jacket and asking again, "You stabbed me, right?" The physical altercation continued, with the 32-year-old man then grabbing the gun from the 36-year-old. Shots were fired as the train was pulling into the Hoyt-Schermerhorn station. This is according to Michael Kemper, who is the NYPD transit chief. Terrified commuters who were on the train and the station platform ducked for cover during the shooting. Now, there was a TikTok video that was sent to me, which is why I looked everything up. There's a TikTok video that was sent to me, and all it showed was everybody on the subway train, like, cowered down, I guess you could say, below the, like, here's a picture of it, if I can get this to zoom at all. No zoom. But they were cowered down kind of like below the windows of the train, but they're on the train. So I understand the cowering, and some people did not care. Some people just sat up again. They were like, listen, this is New York. This kind of stuff happens here all the time. But that's another reason why I don't ever want to go visit New York again. We've been a couple times. My husband is from New York. If you guys know Kevin247 on YouTube, he is from New York. He took me there for one of our anniversaries. I don't remember which one at this point. I think it was our 4th anniversary. He took me there for New York at Christmas because it was on my bucket list, and it was absolutely beautiful. Now, that was also almost 12 years ago. So things have changed in the last 12 years. We took our daughter when she was 8, I believe. She wanted to go to New York. We took her to New York again around Christmas time, and she absolutely loved it, going to Times Square and seeing everything, because it wasn't the shit stain of New York that it is right now. At least it didn't seem like it back then. But you have this shooting on the subway, and what's crazy is that there's not going to be any police officers to respond to these kind of things. So I'm going to jump into all the notes that I had here to talk to you guys about, because it goes along with this shooting. There's so many shootings, stabbings. Well, that was a shooting and a stabbing, but there are muggings, all kinds of just random stuff happening in New York. So according to everything I have written here, we're just going to jump into it. NYPD is suffering. The New York City Police Department is losing all of their police officers. It is a mass exodus, and it is creating safety and security concerns. When you have shootings on subways, you don't want there to be a mass exodus of police. You want there to be somebody there to keep you and the people around you safe. Now, we talked about this yesterday or the day before. Don't pull a pew pew, pow pow, whatever you want to call it. Don't pull a gun if you are not willing and able to use it, or if you don't know how to hold on to it, because you could be disarmed by somebody who does know how to use it, which is exactly what happened in that subway situation. Anyway, the latest reports are officers are leaving the NYPD at record rates. It comes at a time when the city is making statements about major crime overall, with specific focus and highlights on certain neighborhoods. NYPD police officers are walking out the door faster than the precincts can recruit new cops to replace the officers they lost. This is creating huge safety and community concerns in the Big Apple. And NYC, New York City residents in the Rockaways and Queens are saying more officers are needed because of their influence, impact they make in a positive way. But they can't help but fear the worst as they see an almost 50% decline in the 101 precinct alone. This Far Rockaway police station has suffered from police officers who have either retired or quit the force. And less police presence in the neighborhood could spell trouble. The exodus comes as major crime in the neighborhood is up almost 10% this year. I wonder why. I don't know what is happening in New York City this year that's like a jump over other years. I don't know. Maybe illegal immigration, possibly people being bussed into sanctuary cities. According to this, the Police Benevolent Association president, Patrick Henry, said, and I quote, "We are short over 7,000 police officers from the highest peaks in the NYPD. We are losing over 200 police officers a month." We have talked about this numerous times so far in this last week, how there are so many cities and states that are having issues with police officers. And I will say a lot of people have commented saying, well, is this going to be a push for martial law? Are they telling you about how there's so few police officers because now they want to let non-legal citizens become police officers, which we did touch on yesterday or the day before, where there are still some requirements that are necessary. You can't just be an illegal person who crossed a border and went to a police station and said, let me be a cop. There are things you have to, T's you have to cross and I's you have to dot. Cross your T's and dot your I's. I think that's how it goes. Whatever. There's still things you have to do. You can't just be an illegal immigrant and be a police officer. There's visas, green cards, whatever else. There's also probably loopholes to get through it. Hopefully not, but who knows? I don't really trust our government completely. But according to this, y'all, that's not good. Just so we're all fully aware. The PBA says the NYPD has seen historically high attrition right now. With more cops leaving and fewer coming in, it is only going to get worse. That is not me guessing. That's not me, trying to scare anybody. It's legitimately only going to get worse. If police officers are leaving, none are coming in, crime rates are up, more illegal immigrants are coming in through the southern border, being flown in by Biden, coming in through, hopefully not in Florida, but possibly Florida, Haitians, you're gonna have issues. It's going to get worse, all right? These NYPD police precincts are experiencing a severe deficit. Some 2,931 officers either quit or retired, but only 2,345 have been recruited. And not all of them will graduate the academy to replace them, and definitely lack the tenure, experience, and street smarts and gumption of those seniors exiting the force. We know that generally speaking, an 18, 19, 20-year-old is not going to have the same, I don't want to say knowledge, but I feel like that's the right word, as somebody who's been with the force for 5, 10, 15, 20 years even. Somebody who knows exactly what it's about, who's been a beat cop. I just want to say beat cop because I saw it on Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Who's been out on the streets and seen how it all works, knows how everything goes, and isn't green. I think it's called green in the gills. I think is what the phrase. It's going to be harder to replace those that are retiring with younger ones that are coming in who do not have the same knowledge of the force itself, of the people, of the neighborhoods, of everything else, right? Now, data shows the NYPD is at its lowest head count in almost 35 years. And back then, there were 32,451 cops for a population of over 7 million. Now, in contrast, today, there are only 33,541 policers tasked with keeping up with over 8 million people in the 5 boroughs. So you've added just over 1,000 officers in the last 35 years, but you've added at least 1 million people, if not more. That math does not math very well. But wait, y'all, there's more. Because in order to maintain adequate coverage, cops are being stretched thin and are being told, and I quote, slots have to be filled, so we have to do the overtime whether you want it or not. Whether you have something to do with your family, you got to go out and do the overtime. You can't say no. Which is probably why a lot of police officers are quitting, or a lot of people do not want to join the force. A lot of people right now really are trying very hard not to join corporations or any kind of company where they do not get some sort of leeway on vacation time, sick time, things like that, because family is extremely important. At the end of the day, if something happens to you, your job will replace you before you can, or your family can blink, whereas your family is not going to replace you in the same speed, right? Like, family is more important than a job all day long. I don't know if I need to tell you just how bad these things can get, but I'm going to. But cops who have been with the NYPD for 20 plus years are saying things like, the job has changed and there are not too many cops on the street anymore. And the ones who are still left out there, well, they are not going to respond to your job in a timely manner. So basically, like we talked about in, I think it's Pittsburgh, expect 911 to be shut down between the hours of like 3 a.m. and 7 a.m. or maybe even longer. You're going to start seeing this across the board, different cities, different states. If you call 911 or the 10-digit helpline in New York City, Brooklyn specifically, your call might go to a call center in Indiana or the Philippines. AI might pick up the call, or worse, it goes to voicemail or just keeps ringing and nobody ever picks up. We know that has happened before. I know in Atlanta, they had an issue with the 911 dispatch center and the phones just kept ringing. One time it's because they didn't have enough people to answer the phones. Another time because there was some sort of issue when AT&T was, crapping the bed basically. Now, the NYPD said the department regularly monitors attrition and plans to address the issue, adding, while recent events outside of the department continue to present challenges to recruitment efforts, we continue to focus on the positive results that happen when someone joins the organization. But one of the big questions being asked is, would these cops do it again if they had the choice to start all over again? If you guys happen to be a police officer or you have police officers in your family, I know there's a lot of you who watch who have been married to officers who are officers. I know, Jen, your husband was in the police force. I'm curious, would police officers today still do the job that they signed up for 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago? Is it something that today you say, yeah, I'd like to still put my life on the line for these people. I'd like to still help everybody. Or is it, right now it doesn't make sense because of how just bass backwards, I think that's the phrase, bass backwards everything is, where right is wrong and wrong is wrong. No, where wrong is right and right is wrong. That's pretty much how it goes. When you steal stuff, you get away with it. When you don't do anything wrong, you get in trouble. That's the way it has been lately anyway. Let's see. There we go. However, it's not just cops dipping out, because the New York Times just reported on how New York City's population is shrinking. I would move out if I lived in New York City. But city officials said that the new census City officials said that the new census estimates didn't fully account for the growing number of migrants. Census data is touting a number just below 100,000 people who have left and evacuated NYC essentially, but the migrant intake would easily replace those folks who moved out of the city and more than likely down south to Florida or Texas, like Kevin O'Leary and Grant Cardone have said. And the article that I read included how it's very true that lots of well-off people left high-income areas, meaning New York and other cities. One of the 5 boroughs continued to see population declines in 2023, and the Bronx, labeled the city's poorest borough, shrank the most, losing more than 25,000 residents. Brooklyn lost more than 28,000 residents, and Queens lost more than 26,000 legal citizens who once called the city home. The city's decrease represents about 3/4, that's 75% of New York State's overall population decline, and New York has led the nation in population loss, but we can all pretty much guess why. right? You know why. I know why. You know why. New York Times said some commuter areas around New York City also lost residents. On Long Island, Nassau and Suffolk counties shrank by thousands of people collectively, maybe some having moved to Connecticut and New Jersey suburbs. But many questions remain about the city's long-term growth, including worries about a widening income gap and fears of declining revenue, because a lot of people don't want to travel to New York City, and New York City base is a huge travel hub. And if you don't have travel money coming in, it's going to start to wreak havoc on New York City in a whole different way. Now, New York is still in a decline phase, and this is according to the president of the Citizens Budget Commission. And this is concerning because of the effect it will have as a result of a shrinking population and the impacts the city's tax base will feel. The Fiscal Policy Institute found that people leaving the city at the fastest rate were families making between $32,000 and $65,000 a year, and a disproportionately large share of movers were Black or Hispanic. And lastly, the New York Times article also said policymakers are closely monitoring population trends to determine where funding should be allocated and whether higher income taxes for the rich should pay for it. Governor Kathy Hochul chimed in on the likely need for the increase. Hochul? I never remember if it's Hochul or Hochul. I think it's Hochul. Kathy Hochul. One of the questions you may be asking yourself right now is, what is considered a good annual income to earn if you want to survive comfortably and live in New York City? Probably not very many of you are asking that question, I'm fully aware, but based on my research, the amount of income needed to live comfortably in New York City can vary widely depending on individual circumstances, obviously, such as lifestyle choices, housing preferences, family size, personal financial goals. However, a common benchmark used by most financial experts is the 50-30-20 rule, which suggests allocating 50% of your income to necessities, 30% to discretionary spending, and 20% to savings. I'm not even gonna lie right now. I don't know how many people out there have the ability for 30% to discretionary spending. That's 50% of income to necessities seems like way more than 50% these days. 30% to discretionary spending, not that many people are out there, spending money willy-nilly. And 20% to savings is a lot harder than it sounds right now for a lot of people, given the prices of everything and the way inflation has been the last couple years, right? Now, according to recent data, the median household income in New York City is around $63,000 per year, $63,000 per year. However, to live comfortably in New York City, many financial advisors suggest aiming for an annual income of at least $80,000 to $100,000. So you can make $63,000 and live there, but you're going to be a little uncomfortable, boo-boo. This is especially if you want to afford a decent apartment in a desirable neighborhood, cover expenses like transportation, food, healthcare, and have some discretionary income for entertainment and savings. Now, keep in mind that housing costs in New York City are among the highest in the country, so a significant portion of your income may go towards rent or mortgage payments. Additionally, taxes in New York City are relatively high compared to other areas, which also obviously can impact your budget. Ultimately, what constitutes a good annual income for comfortable living in New York City will depend on your individual circumstances and priorities. It is essential to create a detailed budget based on your specific needs and financial goals to determine the income level required to support your desired lifestyle. And that's the same anywhere you are. Doesn't matter what city you're in. If you're in Fresno, California, if you're in Buckhead in Atlanta, if you're in Spartanburg, South Carolina, if you're in Kansas City, Missouri, wherever else, having a budget is very helpful to all families when it comes to what they can spend, what they shouldn't spend, where they can move to, where they can live, things like that, right? Now, if you want to know where the most popular place for New York City residents to relocate to and maximize their income, savings, and improve their quality of life and keep up with inflation and the basic cost of living, then the answer to that seems to be many New York City residents are looking to maximize their income, savings, and quality of life while keeping up with the inflation and basic cost of living. Often consider relocating to nearby cities or suburbs where the cost of living may be lower and job opportunities are still plentiful. Some popular destinations for New Yorkers seeking to improve their financial situation and lifestyle include Jersey, New Jersey. Several cities and suburbs in New Jersey, such as Jersey City, Hoboken, and Montclair, offer more affordable housing options compared to New York City, while still providing easy access to the city for work or leisure activities. Number 2, good old Connecticut. I always used to say like that when I was little. For some reason, we know it's Connecticut. There's a C in there, but nobody says it. It's just Connecticut. But when I was little, it's Connecticut, which sounds really dumb if you say it the way it's spelled. Now, cities like Stamford and Greenwich in Connecticut are popular choices for New Yorkers looking to escape the high cost of living while maintaining proximity to job opportunities in the financial sector, Wall Street and whatnot. Number 3, Westchester County, New York. Suburbs in Westchester County, such as White Plains, Scarsdale, and Bronxville, offer a suburban lifestyle with excellent schools, lower housing costs compared to NYC, and reasonable commuting distances to the city. Number 4, Long Island, New York. Areas like Nassau and Suffolk counties on Long Island provide a mix of suburban living and proximity to New York City. Commuting options include the Long Island Railroad, which offers direct access to Manhattan. Number 5, we're scooting on over to Pennsylvania. Some New Yorkers opt to move to areas in Pennsylvania, such as Philly or Philadelphia or its suburbs, where the cost of living is significantly lower than in NYC, while still, once again, offering diverse job opportunities and cultural amenities. Number 6, upstate New York. They're not going to leave all the way, right? So upstate New York, cities like Albany, Rochester, and Buffalo offer lower housing costs and a slower pace of life compared to NYC, making them attractive options for those seeking a change of scenery without sacrificing career opportunities. But they say that when considering relocation, it's essential for individuals to research the job market, housing costs, quality of schools, healthcare facilities, and overall lifestyle amenities in potential destinations to ensure they can achieve their financial and lifestyle goals. Additionally, factors such as commuting distance, family ties, and personal preferences will influence the decision-making process. So when my family decided to move from Georgia to Florida, we moved from outside of Atlanta, Georgia to here in Okaloosa County, Florida, the Gulf Coast of Florida, the Panhandle, the most beautiful place in the world. We decided to move here. We sat down, my husband and I sat down, and we said, okay, here's what we're spending right now to live in Georgia on 6 acres with a home and, you know, everything with our business and everything else. And then we said, how much would it cost us to go to Florida? Excuse me, hiccup. What are the differences going to be? What are we giving up? What are we gaining? Is it worth leaving literally everybody you know, your whole family and everything, to go somewhere where you have nobody and don't know anybody? And at the end of the day, obviously we decided yes, that for us it made more sense to move to Florida, especially during the pandemic, given what Florida did not mandate and what Georgia tried to mandate when we had a child who was in school. And so we said, you know what, for the safety of our kid and for everything else, we're going to make that move. And it worked out great. We still sit down every few months and re-budget because prices of everything are still changing. Inflation, although it has slowed down, it's still way more expensive than it was a couple years ago. And it's even more expensive living in a touristy area like the Gulf Coast, right? So we sit down and re-budget every couple months to make sure we're still on track with where we want to be and what we want to do, and that we're not shooting ourselves in the foot by, you know, being here or doing anything. It is a good idea as a family to always sit down and go over your budgets as often as possible. I would like to apologize for looking like just whatever. Sat out by the pool yesterday while it was sunny, got a little bit of a sunburn on my face. Today I said, you know what, we're going to the gym with ratty hair and no makeup, and we're going to run some errands. And that's what I've been doing because I don't give a shit. Like, I don't give a shit if I look like, you know, busted can of biscuits and, you know, whatever. I don't really care. Y'all, I'm 42, and the older I get, the more I realize that I don't care what people think of me, whatever, physically, visually, mentally. I mean, I don't want y'all to think I'm, you know, stark raving mad or whatever, but it's nice getting older and not really giving a shit what people think about you. So I'm really looking forward to when I'm like 80 and I'm just crotchety as hell and I tell kids, get off my lawn. But I need a lawn by the time I'm 80 so I can yell at kids to do that. So there's that. I love you guys. Squirrel Tribe, thank you for letting me have this long conversation. Oh, this was shorter than I thought it was going to be. So that's a plus. You guys are amazing. I appreciate you immensely. I do want to say I'm going to tell you about what I saw happen today, but I can't tell you till after my husband's birthday because I can't mention the name of the store, because if he watches this video, he'll know where I went to get his birthday gift. So maybe sometime later next week, I'll fill you in on what I saw today. Let me just say, lot of running kids, lot of, let's see how to phrase this. A lot of running kids, a lot of adults not paying attention to kids, and a lot of police officers involved. It was an interesting situation. So there's that. I will tell you guys about that later. I love you immensely. Thank you for being here today, and have a fabulous rest of your Friday. See you guys tomorrow. Bye.